Now let's talk about 40 objectives in this topic, which is visitor management. So we will first define what is visitor management, then we will explain the principles of visitor management, since there are many principles of visitor management. Then we will also explain the different frameworks for formulating visitor management techniques, where there will be, I will be discussing about two of them. Then next is enumerate the hard and soft tools for VM or visitor management, then know how to behave responsibly and ethically in an ecosystem style. Alright, before we will dive into our main topic, let me ask you, what is a visitor for you? Alright, okay, so a visitor is a person or a group of people that visits a place, or such as tourists visiting an ecotourism site, which is in line with our lesson and our subject. So, next is what is management? Okay, alright. Management is the process of organizing, planning, an activity, or let us say everything. Because in management, it is where we collect data, where we make sure that everything is planned. We have already learned what is a visitor and a management. So now we will learn about what is a visitor management. So, a visitor management, according to country and ISPAS, visitor management is an administrative action to maintain both quality of natural resources and the experience of the visitor. So it is all about talking on the quality of our site and also the experience of each tourist in an ecotourism site specifically. So this means the techniques and actions that the site managers use to protect the environment while also keeping the visitor safe and happy. Because in visitor management, or the managers in visitor management really focuses on maintaining the conservation and also the happiness and the experience of the tourists. So it is a balance of both, protecting and conserving our tourism sites or ecotourism sites, and also really trying to make the tourists feel comfortable, safe, and also make good memories in that site. In addition, visitor management includes reducing negative impacts like littering, overuse of the sites, and it also protecting tourists from dangers for their safety, and also maximizing their enjoyment, satisfaction, and learning during their visit. So did you get what is the visitor management, guys? Okay, very good. Now let's proceed to the 9 principles of a visitor management. First principle is right tools, or the appropriateness of management tools with the objectives. Because when we have the right tools, we will go for the right goals. So not every management strategy works everywhere. We know that. For example, limiting visitors might work in a small park, but in a cultural festival, better crowd control or zoning may be more effective. Managers must choose the right method depending on their goals. So we need to choose what are the right actions or the right way on managing the visitors, including or let's say focusing on which site or what type of site our ecotourism site or any attraction is. Did you get what right foot is? Okay, so now let's proceed to the second principle, which is value diversity. This means that the desirable of diversity in resource and social conditions in protected areas. So protected areas should allow different conditions and experiences. So some places may offer strict conservation with very few visitors, while others can allow more tourism. This diversity ensures that both nature and visitors' needs are respected. So it's all talking about how diverse a site is, and also how diverse people are. So we need to balance both. So value diversity is all about balancing the diversity human or the tourist, and also the place or the site that the tourists are going to. If you get what the first two are, now let's proceed to the third principle, which is guide human impact. So the need to direct and influence induce change. So people will always leave an impact when they visit a place or a site. So the role of managers is to guide and influence the behavior of those tourists who are visiting their sites or the attraction. So example is putting up signs to remind visitors not to litter, not to throw garbage, or to create designated trails so they don't destroy land. So we talked about in our previous topics or reports about trails, the importance of signs in tourism sites. So this is also applicable to the principles of visitor management. So we need to guide the people or the tourists because our tourists also give impacts while visiting our site. So if they have the right instructions of the right signs or the right guidance, they can also help our ecotourism site in a better way. Okay, let's proceed to the fourth principle, which is impacts are inevitable. The inevitability of impacts on resource and social conditions as a result of human use. Because we all know that tourism can never be 100% impact free. Visitors will always leave some change like footprints, noise, and resources use. This principle accepts that reality and it focuses on minimizing the damage rather than experiencing zero impact. Because as a manager of a site, we will never expect that there are no zero impacts or there are tourists that will really follow the rules and also the signs and on what you put and what you hold the tourists. But we will always envision that there are some damages or small damages or some impacts or changes such as footprints, noise, and other resources such as garbages or littering everywhere. So we need to also manage that and also take action. Now we've learned about the first to fourth. Let's proceed to the fifth principle, which is impacts vary by time and place. So the temporary and spatially discontinuous nature of impacts. So the effects of visitors don't always happen everywhere or forever. For instance, a trail may get muddy during rainy season but recover in summer. Then managers should observe when and where impacts occur and adjust accordingly. So as a manager in an ecotourism site, we should be flexible for any situation such as the climate or the seasons that we are having in our ecotourism sites or any natural disasters that may happen or occur. Now let's proceed to the sixth principle, which is many factors affect impact. The multiplicity of variables that influence the use-impact relationship. So it's not only about how many visitors come in our sites or ecotourism sites, but the type of activities such as in an ecotourism site it is for camping or it is for picnicking and just for a cafe or any other activity. So the fragility of the ecosystem, the season, and even the behavior of visitors can affect how big the impact is. So there are really many factors in an ecotourism site that as a manager manages its visitors, because each site has its unique aspect or unique characteristics or activities that is different from another. So we should always need to know what are those and what are the factors that to consider. Now let's proceed to the seventh principle, which is the realization that many management problems are not due to number of users. So it is all about, not always about numbers. So sometimes even a small group can cause big problems. Small tourists can cause big problems if they behave badly. Because we all know that nobody's perfect and they're really bad and pasaway tourists. So, for example, one careless camper can start a forest fire. That is a big problem, right? So, while 100 careful hikers may leave almost no damage if they follow a trail, the signs, and all the things that the tourists should follow or consider. So, the problem is not always too many visitors, but how they behave. So, let's say that it is not on how crowded a site can be, but how careful and how diligent the tourist is, or it is all about their characteristics and their behavior. Now let's proceed to the last, which is the 8th principle. The 8th principle is limiting visitors is not the only solution. It is somehow connected to the previous principle. So limiting use as being just one of many management options, because there are many options. Because again, if there are many crowds, it is not really a problem if they all behave well. So the reducing visitor numbers is one option, but there are many other tools. For example, managers can spread visitors across different areas in the site, or improve facilities for their safety also, and also educate tourists before they explore your site, or create schedules to avoid overcrowding. So it is also connected to a framework that I will discuss later on. Now let's proceed to the last principle of a visitor management. So we have the balance, science, and value. So the need to separate technical decisions from value judgments in decision making. So decisions should not be based on only science or only on opinions. For example, science may suggest allowing 500 visitors, but if the local community feels it harms their culture, managers must respect both sides. So the best solution is mix technical knowledge and human values. Let's not always follow what the internet or our researches from science, but also let's follow or hear the people or the local people that is living in the ecotourism site, because it may disturb their culture, or because we all know that we have different culture, we have different beliefs, and we should consider and respect both in both ways. So that are the principles of a visitor management. So now let's proceed to my next topic, an example of a visitor management, which is a visitor management in Boracay. So we all know that in 2018, Boracay has been closed because there are many aspects in Boracay that has been destroyed, such as the littering, many garbages are everywhere now, and it really needs to be managed well, because Boracay is one of the top tourist spots here in the Philippines. So the problem, before 2018, Boracay was facing serious problems such as overcrowding, pollution, and poor waste management. Because of this, the island's environment suffered a lot. So the beaches turned green with algae, and water quality went down. So in 2018, the government decided to temporarily close the island for 6 months to give way for rehabilitation. So that is how the government in the Philippines find or manage the problem, is to have a rehabilitation of the island, the Boracay Island. So let's go to the purpose of why the government needs to rehab the island, or Boracay. So the main purpose of visitor management in Boracay was to protect and sustain the island's natural environment, while still allowing tourism to continue in a more responsible and organized way. It's all about finding the balance between tourism growth and environmental protection. We all know that Boracay is a top tourist spot, but even though it is a top tourist spot, we should always consider the health of that island. That's why it has been rehabilitated by the government to protect our mother nature in Boracay Island. So these are the actions that the government had to in rehabilitating the Boracay. So to achieve that, the government applied several visitor management actions. First, they limit the numbers of tourists on the island to 19,000 at a time. So this has been lessened from the previous or from the open Boracay in the previous year. So there is a limited tourist at a time to visit Boracay. This to inform you, this is after the rehabilitation or the reopening of Boracay Island. So next is they allowed hotels and resorts with proper waste system to reopen. So they are now stricter on the proper waste management or the proper waste systems in the hotels and all the facilities in the island. So next, tourists are also need to confirm the hotel booking before entering Boracay. So tourists are now required to have a book hotel or any check-ins or any accommodation in Boracay before they can enter this island. So next, single-use plastics were banned. Waste collection was improved and zoning rules were set for swimming, boating, and other beach activities. So yeah, so single-use plastics such as plastic bags, plastic bottles, and all other single-use plastics are now banned in the island to reduce the waste and also to have a proper waste management. And also, there are now zones for which is only for swimming, for boating, and other beach activities. Lastly, traffic was regulated and eco-friendly transport was encouraged, such as using bicycle because bicycle is an eco-friendly transportation. So if you got on the action, let's proceed to connection to visitor management principles or the principles that I have discussed earlier. So these actions connect directly to the principles of visitor management because they use appropriate tools and strategies like visitor limits or the limited tourists to enter the island, then zoning, just like what I said, like zones for swimming, boating, and other beach activities, and other regulations such as the traffic regulations that we had, and also the hotel, and also on the tourists that can enter should have a confirmed book in their accommodation. So they aim to minimize human impact, maintain social balance, and monitor changes continuously to keep Boracay environment healthy to prevent what happened way back there in 2018 and way back pa yun. So the results of these actions that the government had are the water became cleaner, and the beaches are now clearer. They're not green and full of algae. Then the waste system are now improved since the hotels or the accommodations in Boracay are now really have a stricter rule about having a proper waste system. So the tourist numbers are now controlled, and visitors' experience it is more peaceful and enjoyable to stay because overcrowding is not really there in Boracay because there are limited number of tourists to enter the island. Overall, Boracay became a model for sustainable tourism in our country, which is the Philippines. Okay, so we have discussed the actions and all of the problem purpose of Boracay. So to summarize, the case of Boracay proved that visitor management is not about stopping tourism, but it is about making it sustainable. So by controlling visitor numbers, enforcing environmental rules, and protecting natural resources, we can make sure beautiful places like Boracay will stay alive for future generations. So it is not all about stopping a tourism sites to have more tourists, but it's also protecting the site itself. Okay, so if you got what is the visitor management, the principles, and our example, which is Boracay, now let's proceed to the frameworks in visitor management. So I will be discussing about two frameworks. So now let's begin with the first framework. So there are two, the carrying capacity or the CC and the limits of acceptable exchange. So let's proceed with the first, which is carrying capacity. So what is it? So it is a framework to set limits on visitors so the site won't be degraded. So this is the framework that the ecotourism site or any attraction uses to limit the number of tourists to enter their site. So basically, the area can hold a maximum number of people without damage. Then rotation coefficient or RC. Rotation coefficient is RC, which is hours open per day or average hours per visit. Again, RC equals to hours open per day. So let's say a site is open for 10 hours a day divided by or over average hours per visit of a person. Let's say a person in that site, the average hour visit of a person of the site is 2. So it is 10 over 2. So potential carrying capacity or the PCC, so area can hold a maximum number of people without damage. So this is the PCC. Then in calculating or in formulating the number of people that can enter, or the limit or the capacity of a people can enter the site is by the Bolyon's simple model. So this is CC or carrying capacity equals area used by tourists meters squared. So let's say meters squared, so 2 divided by 2 meters squared per person. So here is the clear version of the formula and how to calculate the carrying capacity. Okay, so this is it. This is the formula on how to have how to get the PCC or how to calculate the carrying capacity of a site. So let's start with the CC equals area used by tourists in square meters times square meters over average space per person. So the average area per person is given as 2 square meters. So that is already given, so that will not be changed. So it is the area of a site over 2 dyan na siya. Then multiply it by the rotation coefficient to get the potential carrying capacity of the PCC. So the RC or the rotation coefficient is again hours open daily over average hours per visit. So if we want to get the potential carrying capacity of the site, we need the carrying capacity and multiplied by the rotation coefficient. So did you get it lang, guys? So if you're still confused about it, let's try to solve something, or let's try to look at this example. So first, this is the scenario. A nature reserve has 12,000 meters square available for their visitors. So it's open 10 hours per day. So 10 hours per day, average visit length is 2.5 hours per person. So we will use the formula Bolyon. So 2m squared over person standard. So this is the step-by-step calculation. Okay, so carrying capacity equals 12,000, that is given, the area is 12,000 meters squared divided by 2, because 2 is the average, 2 again, 2 is given, 2 is average meters squared or area per person. So that is equal to 6,000 people present at the same time. RC, so hours open over average visit time. So let's have 10 over 2.5. So now it is equal to 4. So 4 rotations per day. So we will proceed to the potential carrying capacity. So 6,000 times so the CC, which is 6,000 times RC, which is 4, equals 24,000 visitors per day. So the potential carrying capacity of a visitor of that site per day. So that is how we calculate or solve or to find the potential carrying capacity of a site. Alright, so for everyone to really understand on how to solve the carrying capacity or the potential carrying capacity of a site or an attraction, let us have an example, which is the Santa Box Eco Adventure Park. So I have researched that the Santa Box Eco Adventure Park is open for 1000 to 1700. So let's say it's 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So 7 hours. And let's say that the customers or the tourists will, the average time for tourists to go there is, let's say, 3.5 hours per person. So we will now solve for the CC. CC equals for this is only a guess because when I researched the square meter or the area for the Santa Box, I cannot find anything. So I guess is 1,850 over 2, which is 2 is really the given area per person. So it is equals to 925. So this is the CC. So now let's solve for the RC or the rotation. It is equals to 7 because 1000 to 1700. So 7 hours over, like what I said earlier, 3.5 per person. So 2. So RC is equals to 2. Then let's solve for the PCC. The PCC equals the CC times RC. So it is 925 times 2 equals 1,850. So this is the potential carrying capacity of a site. So we have the 1,850 tourists a day in a site, which is the site is the Santa Box Adventure Park. Alright, so we already learned how to solve or how to get the potential carrying capacity of the site. But now let's learn that there are also limitations of a carrying capacity in each site, which start with calculations can be manipulated by the stakeholders to make destinations more exclusive or absorb more visitors. So I know that carrying capacity really needs to be solved, but there are really managers, stakeholders, or owners of a site that manipulates the numbers so that they can benefit more or they can make their site exclusive for those people only. The next is unrealistic expectations of a magic number, which focuses on visitor numbers rather than conditions. This is when the managers or the owners or anyone that owns the site decides to really not consider the health of the site if it is healthy or if it is safe or if it is really okay to go to visit, and they are more into the benefit that they can have, such as money or the money that the tourists can give to them. So next assumes that there is a direct relationship between tourist use and impacts. Then next does not generate technically effective or politically viable solutions to visitor management problems. So these are the limitations of a carrying capacity that we should really prevent. So these are the limitations of carrying capacity. So we have learned the first framework, which is carrying capacity. Now let's proceed to our second framework, which is the second framework is limits of acceptable change, or the LAC. So this is the LAC. So LAC is a visitor management framework used in ecotourism to decide how much change or impact from tourism is acceptable. Let's highlight the word acceptable in a natural area before it starts to harm the environment or the visitor experience. It's not just about limiting the numbers of tourists, like in carrying capacity, but it is all about setting acceptable limits for environmental and social conditions of the site. So then, managing tourism activities to keep things within those limits. So it's not all about limiting the numbers of tourists to go, but it is all about limiting the changes or the things to consider in a site that are acceptable. So it is all about, in short, instead of asking how many visitors can come here in person sites, LAC asks how much change is acceptable here before it becomes too much or before it really degraded or really affects this site negatively. Alright, so we have learned what is LAC, so we will now learn the 9 steps of LAC process. So step 1. Step 1 is identify issues and concerns. So we should know the issues, or we should really look throughout our site to know what problem to address. That is step 1. So next is define opportunity classes. So we need to classify what that area is for, or what are the things or activities that should be only for that area, for the safety, also for the tourists. The third step is select indicators. So we should really choose what factors or what indicators to measure to really make sure that everything is all good. The fourth is inventory current conditions. So we should always check the current situation of the site, such as its trails, all the facilities, and also the health of our environment in the site. The next step is set standards for each zone to decide what's acceptable. Just like what I mentioned earlier in Boracay, that there are zoning na for only for swimming, only for boating, and only for other activities. So this is applicable also to other ecotourism sites, such as sites for picnicking, sites for tents, and sites for other activities that people or tourists can do in that specific attraction. Next step is identify alternatives. So we, as a manager of an ecotourism site or any attraction, we should plan different options, or we should always be flexible enough to have any plan B or plan B, C, D, E, F, G, and all other options that we can have in a zone, in a site, and other things that we should consider in an ecotourism site. So the next step is identify action. So as we identify the problem and everything in the previous steps, we should choose what to do, or to choose what is the proper way to adjust in a zone, in a site, and in what activity or what facility to have in our ecotourism site. And the 8th step is evaluate and choose the best plan. So we should always pick the best solution that can benefit not just the tourism, not just you as an owner, as a manager, but also the tourists can also have the best safe, comfortable experience that they can have. And lastly, we should implement and monitor. So we should apply and observe. So as a manager, we should always observe not just our tourists, not just our income, but also we should observe the overall aspect or overall health of our site, so that we can address the problem. We can really prevent anything to happen, and we can also, if there are problems, we can take action fastly. Also have our flexibility in action. So that are the steps in LAC. So now, let's have a summary. So in short, LAC is about deciding what changes are okay in an ecotourism site, setting limitations in that site, monitoring the area, and taking action before things get worse. So this is an example scenario on how. So this is an example on how LAC takes action. So here, a hiking trail in a national park starts to show soil erosion and ash. So step 1, identify the issue. So it is the trail damage and the littering. So step 2, divide area. So we should apply the zoning that I mentioned, a picnic zone and hiking zone. Step 3, measure indications such as the erosion depth and number of crashes in the site. So step 4, we should record the data. So we should always have our statistics. So next is step 5, set standards. So erosion must not exceed 10 centimeter deep or so soil erosion. And step 6 to 8, we should create and choose the best plan, such as adding signs for the zonings that I mentioned earlier in the step. Then we should also apply limited group size or group number of size. Step 9, the last step is implement and monitor regularly, because as I said earlier, monitoring is the best way as a manager to adjust to prevent any problem to escalate or to be worse. Once again, I hope that you learned many things from me.